Hey everyone, my name is Steve, this is Dying of Exposure, and I want to start talking about Worlds Beyond Number, so I'm just going to start talking about it. Right now, we're at the beginning of Arc 3. For those that don't know, Worlds Beyond Number is an actual play podcast with Brennan and Mulligan, Aabria, Iyengar, Erica Ishii, and Lou Wilson. It is arguably the best actual play podcast currently playing, and we just started Arc 3, so what a better time for me to jump into it than now. I mean, of course, the first year of it would have been good, but we're at episode 24, Knock Knock. Just to give you a heads up, I am going to be spoiling stuff. I also know that the new episode comes out tomorrow, so I don't honestly think a lot of people will see this video, but I need to get started somewhere, and I decided this morning this is what I was going to do. So we're specifically going to talk about some of the choices of Aabria Iyengar playing the Wizard Suvi, or the Wizard Sky, whose real name is Suvi. I'm not going to explain everything or the background up to here. I'm going to assume that the people watching this know this. It's great actual play. If you haven't watched it, go back, or if you haven't listened to it, go back, listen to the whole podcast, and then maybe come back here and follow and subscribe if you like talking about the actual plays that are out there. I'm a big fan of Dimension 20, NADPOD, Dungeons and Daddies. I'm going to try and make more YouTube content around this. You can also follow me on socials at Dying of Exposure everywhere, where I occasionally talk about this and other stuff. But let's talk about episode 24 of The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One from Worlds Beyond Number, Knock Knock, and specifically the Wizard Sky. Now, to catch us up, essentially anyone that listened to the last arc, which again you should have if you're listening to this because spoilers, that where we left our trio of players, or rather characters, Ursulon, Ami, and Suvi, was separated, spread out from each other, with Ami at the very North Pole to meet with the Witches' Coven. We have Ursulon finding the burrow with his sister who had been looking for him for decades and decades and decades, and now they're finally reunited. And we have Suvi at the Citadel, or rather on a skyship, having been left at the Citadel. Now, emotionally, where we left Suvi specifically, and there's tons of cool stuff that happened in this episode, but I want to focus on Suvi for this video. Emotionally, where we left her off is a great line from Aabria Iyengar, which is, "I love my true friends, but I cannot trust them. Who can I trust? Steel." Steel is Suvi's de facto mother figure and a representation of the Citadel and how it kind of operates. Very organized, very controlled, very methodical, very government power organization body. They do have tenets of various imperialisms and the sort of need for control that those bodies sort of inevitably move toward as a position of power. But at this point, Steel's representation is more someone that's always had Suvi's back and that Suvi could always trust. And in this situation, the other player characters abandoned the wizard. They didn't follow direction. They created a bunch of chaos, and Suvi feels that absence. So they all need to get together, because we know from the prophecy, from the divination, that if Ame doesn't have her friends with her, she may die at this coven meeting of the witches, and she needs to not have that happen, right? And Suvi feels hurt, but not maliciously so, right? She still cares and loves her friends. So they are all separated, but Suvi is on an airship from the Citadel heading toward this meeting. Now, the episode does a good job at addressing the first two characters first in their little sections, and the group is not fully together yet by the end of Knock Knock. But when we get to Suvi's part, we get what I really care about in this episode. I care about the fact that in any other TTRPG game, D&D game, tabletop game, whether I'm running it myself or I'm playing at it or I'm recommending things, I would normally say, hey, there's distrust and a gulf in the party. I hope that the players are working on paths to mend this. But because of the quality of players and storytellers we have in Worlds Beyond Number, that's not what's happening. What's happening is that Brennan Lee Mulligan and Aabria Iyengar are seeding an amazing potentiality of a further breaking of trust. Because at the end of the episode, when Steel offers the Manchurian Candidate style plan to Suvi, who trusts Steel, Suvi, who knows that she can rely on Steel and the Citadel, Suvi, who doesn't trust the broader category of witches and only trusts Ame, Suvi, who's been raised by an organization to understand that witches are a threat, they're hard to control, and the organization constantly seeks the ability to be able to predict threats and measure if there's something that has to be addressed or if there's something that we leave in the world, much like the wild ones get left in the world, right? Based off prior advice, right? Suvi's, of course, going to go for that plan. And Aabria right there is putting a landmine in the future, a trigger in the future to create a further breach of trust between Suvi and Ame. Because no matter what they learn about the witches, no matter what happens here, eventually it's going to come to a head that Ame is going to discover that not only did Suvi have a plan to get some information for the Citadel, which I think Ame would assume would be the case, right? Ame knows her friend, she knows how wizards feel about witches, but that they had a subconscious plan with some memory alteration that Steele was running, and that Suvi chose to trust that plan and deceive everyone, including herself, putting her full trust into Steele. This is going to cause greater friction. It's going to cause further distance in the relationship of the group. Now, what's exciting about this is in a normal tabletop session, I'd be like, well, the problem with this is this could make this character a villain. And perhaps it will in Worlds Beyond Number. Perhaps that will be the case. But I trust these players. I trust that if they do that, that it's going to be phenomenal storytelling. And I trust that if they do manage to come back together as characters and rebuild that trust and rebuild their relationship, that they're going to take the time to earn that. And it takes a special kind of player. It takes Aabria Iyengar, who and as well as Erika Ishii and Lou Wilson, to let this story play out in the fiction and not have it seep backwards. It takes a special kind of GM to put that token out there to be grabbed up and be confident that their player is either going to pick it up or not, and that will create its own interesting story. And it's that reason, along with so many others, that Worlds Beyond Number has quickly become, over this last year, my favorite actual play to listen to. I cannot address enough how amazing this is, both sound design, storytelling, just the world building in general, the dynamics between the characters, how things go forward. So I think that it will be extremely interesting to see where this goes. And we don't have to wait long because the new episode for the actual series comes out tomorrow. So if you're a big fan of Worlds Beyond Number, if you're a fan of Aabria Iyengar, all of that stuff, please go listen to last week's episode, listen to it again, or 2 weeks ago's episode, but join me here because I'm going to pick something from every episode that I want to talk about and celebrate and encourage other GMs to learn from, because doing something like that, if you make the judgment that your table can handle it as an interplay relationship, it's going to elevate your actual plays, your TTRPG sessions, your home games, whatever content you are creating or whatever worlds you're playing in, 1000%. All right, my name is Steve. That's been the video. If you like this, if you like Worlds Beyond Number, Dimension 20, NADPOD, Dungeons and Daddies, I'm going to be talking about them more here in these kind of simpler video forms. We're going to be doing another video about what I thought about last week's episode of Dimension 20 for Fantasy High Junior Year, the Last Stand battle wrap-up, all that good stuff. And so, you know, maybe subscribe, maybe follow, maybe get those notifications. That would be awesome. You can also follow me at social media at Dying of Exposure, wherever you social your medias. All right. Thank you, and see you next time.